And now joining me to discuss the historic Negev summit and more, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Former Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us. Now, first off, in general, what do you make of the Negev summit between Israel, the US, the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco? What message does it send to the world?
I think first of all, I think it sends a message to all of the participants. This is no doubt a very significant event. The fact that Arab countries, Egypt, the Emirates, Morocco, Bahrain, together with the Secretary of State of the United States, all come to Israel. They didn't come to Jerusalem, but one can understand the sensitivities, but they are meeting in the state of Israel. This is a major event by itself, regardless of what may come out of it. So I think that it couldn't have happened before. It happens now. It shows that there is a new axis, that Israel is in the center of it, of important countries that share enough interest to justify such a meeting in the state of Israel.
Well, so that's actually exactly what I wanted to ask you, because it seems that Israel is increasingly becoming a significant player in regional geopolitics, more so than before. Is this really all because of Iran, a common enemy, or does it run deeper, as you say, with common values and further sharing of interests?
Well, one has to remember that before the summit, we made peace. Diplomatic peace and formal peace with Morocco, with the Emirates, with Bahrain. So the beginning of this breakthrough is the peace agreements that we signed with those countries. And it, I think, manifests that there are common interests, and that these common interests are not discussed quietly behind the scenes, underground, but it's done openly in front of the whole world. And I think this is a very important message to many other countries in the area which may join in eventually to this new axis.
Well, so what kind of grade would you give to Foreign Minister Lapid and Prime Minister Bennett with respect to international conduct?
In general, I think that they are doing quite well. I think that they proved that the leadership of the State of Israel is recognized by the international community, that is highly respected, and that they can communicate in a very impressive manner with leaders from across the world, both in the region and across the region. Bennett can speak with Putin, he speaks with Zelensky, he speaks with Chancellor Schultz, he speaks with Macron, he speaks with Boris Johnson, and he speaks with the President of America. And now the Secretary of State comes here together with foreign ministers of our countries. This is, I think, something that couldn't have happened in a different political circumstance, because I don't think that any of them would have trusted Netanyahu, and any of them would have wished to participate in a meeting with Netanyahu.
So the State Department made a point to bring up the Israel-Palestine conflict. They want to increase the grounds for negotiations, but it seems like that topic is more or less falling by the wayside again. What do you make of that, especially as someone who very famously brought a pretty expansive potential peace agreement to the table?
Let's draw a distinction between two different items. Okay, one is the Palestinian issue and the other is the Iranian issue. I think that as far as the Iranian issue is concerned, we can't expect any dramatic breakthrough as a result of this meeting. I think that more than we are going to influence the American position, the Secretary of State Blinken probably wants to make use of this meeting in order to convince the concerned participants, the Israelis and the others, that the agreement that the Americans are going to sign is not as bad as we think it is. And I think that there will not be a change in the American basic attitude towards this agreement. I don't think that they will change any of the understandings that they have reached or that they are about to reach with the Iranians. As for the Palestinian issue, I think that if at all it will be raised, it will be more like a lip service made by them to just show that we don't forget, that we don't ignore the Palestinians, but an initiative which will establish a new basis for meaningful negotiations between us and the Palestinians. Regrettably, I think we should have. I very much support it. I think it's important. I think it's essential. I think this is perhaps the most important strategic interest of the state of Israel, more than anything else. But here I don't see any chances for a dramatic development.
Right.
And if at all it will be discussed, it will be more like a lip service that the Palestinians are not ignored or not forgotten.
All right. Well, so I want to go back then to Iran. So I want to go back to Iran briefly because I know you just mentioned that it's unlikely that any of the objections that Israel and the other Arab states have against the JCPOA are likely to have an effect on those deals. But what about with the IRGC? Because when asked directly about the IRGC, Secretary of State Blinken refused to even acknowledge that it is a terror group, instead dancing around the designation and saying that they're the most heavily sanctioned group in the world.
The Revolutionary Guards are a danger and a provocative element that is trying to upset the balance in the Middle East. But the main thing is the agreement about the nuclear capability, potential nuclear capabilities of Iran. And there, I hope that the agreement will not be worse than the original agreement. Hopefully, it will be better. I'm not against an agreement. I'm against a bad agreement. But I think that Israel doesn't have a real military option at this point to attack Iran. And I'm not certain that there is a reason for Israel at this point, considering what we know about the progress of the nuclear plan in Iran, to initiate a military attack. But as I said before, we know how to deal with the Revolutionary Guards. We are stronger than them. We are smarter than them. We are more powerful than them. And I think that they know it. And if there will be need to prove it again, then we'll find the ways and the measures to show.
All right. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, thank you so much.
Thank you.